Don't miss out. Hit like, share, and subscribe right now.
John and Eve weren't tourists. They weren't thrill seekers with GoPros strapped to their heads either. They were semi-experienced explorers, trained enough to squeeze through narrow passages and keep their heads in the dark. They'd come to the Postojna caves of Slovenia under the guise of research, but the truth was simpler: curiosity. The main caverns were lit and walked by thousands of tourists every year, but John and Eve weren't here for the guided path. They were mapping side tunnels, the ones marked with chains and faded warning signs, the ones tour groups never saw. The air grew cooler the deeper they pressed. Their lamps carved narrow cones of light through the stone, illuminating long ribbons of mineral deposits, sparkling walls that had never seen daylight. Every so often, they stopped to mark their rope line. It was their lifeline back to the main route. Without it, they would be swallowed whole by the labyrinth of rocks. "Folklore says something lives down here," Eve whispered once, her voice bouncing against the limestone. John chuckled, though it sounded forced. "Folklore says a lot of things. Demons, dragons, witches. These caves are old. People made up stories because they didn't understand geology." Eve didn't smile. She adjusted her helmet and kept moving.
A low rumble shook the walls. Dust drifted down from the ceiling like falling ash. John froze. "Underground river," he said quickly. "Water moving under the stone. Normal." Eve didn't answer. Her hand lingered against the wall, her eyes searching the shadows. The silence after the rumble was worse. The caves should have been alive with sound, the dripping of water, the flutter of bats. Instead, there was nothing, just the sound of their own breathing. Then their headlamps flickered. John slapped his light, muttering about bad batteries. Eve's lamp dimmed, then flared again, stuttering like a dying heartbeat. They pushed forward, their nerves fraying with each step. In a wide chamber they stopped short. Scattered across the ground were enormous, translucent fragments. They shimmered faintly in the lamplight, ridged like scales. Each one was the size of a shield. John forced a laugh. "Crocodile. Some zoo lost its pet." His voice cracked at the end. Eve knelt, her fingers trembling as she traced the edge of a fragment. It was warm to the touch, too warm for a cave floor. "We should go back," she whispered. Before John could argue, a sound filled the chamber, a slow, steady rhythm rising from the earth itself. Inhale, exhale. Like lungs the size of mountains breathing in the dark. The air turned foul, sulphurous, hot against their skin. Their lights caught ripples in the cavern walls, as though the rock itself was shifting in time with the sound. They spun back toward their rope line, only to find it severed. The frayed end dangled in the dark, useless. Panic surged. "We retrace," John barked, though his voice shook. "We'll find another route." But the chamber itself seemed to shift as they moved.
Passages narrowed, shadows thickened. Their lamps revealed ridges across the stone floor, rows of them, curving, layered. Eve stopped cold. Her light trembled as it swept across the ridges. Not stone, not deposits, scales. They had been walking across the body of something buried under centuries of rock. Something vast, coiled through the caverns like a living labyrinth. And now it was stirring. The floor quivered, stone cracked. From the black, a single eye opened, slitted, molten gold, the size of a doorway. John screamed, "Run!" They sprinted, their lamps bouncing wildly across the stone. Behind them, the worm moved, its massive coils grinding against the cave walls with a sound like mountains collapsing. Dust and rocks rained down. Ahead, a glow appeared, pale light, a promise of escape. They ran harder, lungs burning. The tunnels narrowed around them, but the worm's body shifted like living architecture, cutting off paths, coiling into walls, sealing exits. John was yanked off his feet, his scream cut short as something pushed him in the dark. The sound of bones snapping echoed through the cavern. Eve stumbled, fell, scrambled forward. The light grew brighter. She clawed toward it, desperate. But as she drew closer, the truth hit her. It wasn't sunlight. It wasn't the cave mouth. It was the glow of the worm's open throat, bioluminescent, pulsing with heat. The cavern exhaled hot air, and she screamed as she was pulled toward the living tunnel of its maw. Her headlamp clattered to the ground, spinning, capturing only the shadows of vast coils, tightening, tightening, tightening. Darkness swallowed everything.
The final sound was silence, then a distant rumble, like the earth itself sighing as the worm settled back into slumber. The mind is fragile. It bends, it breaks, it fractures under pressure. But sometimes it isn't your mind that's the problem. Sometimes it's the places we let inside. They say the cave worm encircles the world, tail in mouth. If it ever uncoils, the end will come. Perhaps it has already begun.